Nandana Braja Janna Rahan Janna Yasara Nandana Braja Janna Rahan Janna Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram. Jaya Gauritai, Jaya Gauritai, Jaya Gauritai, Jaya Gauritai. Jaya Radha Shama Sundar, Radha Shama Sundar, Radha Shama Sundar, Radhe Sham. Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Vansha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vaeva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So today we're continuing on with Shama Sundar's book, Chasing the Rhinos. all of them have come here for 2 weeks to practice together as our Sankirtan party. Now this was, what was happening was that in Jamuna's book, which we were reading last week, Srila Prabhupada had organized an international Sankirtan party. So they were becoming very tight little band. You know, they were practicing, and Prabhupada was correcting their pronunciations and really tuning them up how to present Krishna consciousness nicely. So we're jumping right in. All of them have come here for 2 weeks to practice together as our Sankirtan party. Then they will go to London and begin preparations for our center there. While they are here, we're having rehearsals of Kirtan daily. And that is in a letter written to Hari Griva on August 12, 1968. So begins our tutelage right away. The Swami conducts a fire ceremony, and we are given Brahman threads. And Swamiji whispers the Gayatri mantra into our ears, our right ears. This 7-verse, I thought it was left, this 7-verse mantra is to be spoken silently 3 times a day, 10 repetitions of each mantra. And he patiently teaches us how to count on one hand, moving the thumb from the finger segment to finger segment. No, like this. Someone has typed the Gayatri mantra on little slips of paper for the initiates. It takes me days to memorize the simple Sanskrit prayers. This second initiation signifies our spiritual birth as Brahmins. Brahmins. We are twice born. It is a formal recognition of how we now we're fully competent Krishna devotees now go out into the world and act that way. Anyone who knows this, that I am the self and I act in that way, he is Brahman. Just see how quickly, they say that a moment's association with a pure devotee, a moment. Just a moment you can change a person's life. A pure devotee takes a moment. And Prabhupada explained to us it takes buckets of blood to make a new devotee. Buckets. So, but Prabhupada can very quickly do it where it does take us buckets. Hare Krishna. The Swami said that now that we have Brahman, we must clean up our acts. I didn't know it yet, but I guess Swamiji knew there would be lots of Indian people in London watching us, and he said, we must be clean, well-mannered, and respectful of everyone. Try telling this to a bunch of American kids, more used to saying, hey man, than my dear sir. They were very informal. Swami several times says that his own spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, Swami had sent only Swamis to England back in the 30s, and that they were largely unsuccessful. Now the Swami was sending grihastas, married couples, to do what the Swamis could not. For this, the Swami was being criticized by his godbrothers back in India. Ooh, be careful who you criticize. They might surprise you. Krishna can empower anybody, and he does. So be careful who we criticize. So, he is mixing with women. He is contaminating Brahminical standards. The Swami would tell us, when the elephant passes, the dog will bark. You see that. And then Prabhupada also used when the caravan passes, the dog will bark. And we practically saw that in our youth. There was no leash law. Now all dogs have to be on a leash. And if a car would just drive down the street, what would the dog do? Rah, 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 run after the car, like it was herding the car. They have herding tendencies, so they want to control the traffic. But they can't. So we have to see that in ourselves too. And like 11th Canto, 24 Gurus, you can learn how not to be and how to be from animals. How to be loyal like a dog, and then how not to try to control everything like a dog might be in chasing traffic. We have seen only the occasional Indian in the San Francisco temple, and here in Montreal, there was a substantial Indian congregation, and we started to understand their sensitivities, their over-polite character, their over-polite chatter, and their roundabout way of getting to a point. The Swami met with his London crew to examine our finances. He thought we didn't have enough money to make a good impression, and he offered to loan us $1,500. I gave him the name and details of the charter bank, the London bank recommended to us by Peggy Kasturta's tenant David Cocking. Saraswati did well in Montreal in those far from private conditions. We never heard a peep from her as Malati kept her on the breast under her sari. The Swami joked, "I've seen that little baby Saraswati is always eating." He said that later on when she was two years old, running around, going in and out of his room. He used to make a joke. He said she's like a garbage truck. Her mouth goes, because he was fascinated. In America, there are these huge trucks that have this back that opens up, and then they throw the garbage in it. And Srila Prabhupada, he was like, he had a childlike way about him to be fascinated with things, to see how amazing it was. So when Saraswati would run into his room, he would often give her a sweet, and then she would open her mouth and pop the sweet in. And so Prabhupada said to her, her mouth goes, and she eats like a garbage truck. She's always eating. And she had access to Prabhupada's quarters, in, out, very much so. So the Swami joked, "I was a little worried that the baby would not travel well, maybe cause everyone grief on this long journey, but thought, well, that's Malati's problem. Just keep the kid quiet, okay?" Swami writes to Krishna Devi, "I've seen Malati nursing her child so nicely that she attended my meeting every day and the child was playing and never cried." Prabhupada was amazed. He had such common sense about the children when sometimes we weren't so, our common sense was lacking. Now Prabhupada, he was expert. And he even told Arundhati that up till the age of 5, your child is your deity. Because why? Because she was off doing deity worship and neglecting her child. So Prabhupada told her, your child is your deity. So in this case, he's happy to see that Malati's taking nice care. We had noticed that the Indian people were always trying to touch Swami's feet, and he didn't like this very much. Someone told us that if you touch the feet of a saintly person, you get rid of 10,000 lifetimes of sinful activities. Malati and Janaki asked Govindadasi to ask Swamiji if it would be all right if we touched his feet before we left for London. And as we had read in Jamuna's book, she was saying we won't be able to go there and succeed nicely unless we get to take the dust of your lotus feet. So she had a good argument. She had a very good argument. They wanted that empowerment. So on the day of our departure for New York, the Swami met with us at his apartment. We're sitting there, and suddenly Swami sticks his legs out. We get the message. One by one, ladies first, we approached the Swami and put our heads on his feet, and he touches and rubs each of us on the back of our heads and necks. It feels so good. The rush and the shivers of electric well-being, and we sit back dizzy with pleasure. Jamuna was so bold that she grabbed his feet, tears streaming from her eyes. People were always talking about getting zapped by the Guru, instant enlightenment. But with that touch to the back of the head, we all felt that Swami had truly blessed us with our mission, that our mission would be successful without a doubt. Whew. I wonder if we could get a count of who all got to do that kind of, like Charan Sparse night processes of devotional service to worship the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the pure devotee. On August 19th, we flew to New York City and took taxis to 26 2nd Avenue, the birthplace of Swamiji's pastimes in America. The problem was the heat wave. It was so hot and sticky on the Lower East Side that it was like moving underwater. Brahmananda acted the perfect host. His legendary tough commander of so many early struggles was for real and a sweetheart under his bluster. Most of us, long timers here in Vrindavan, we know Brahmananda. We got his wonderful association. He showed us the Swami's apartment, the sweltering temple where it had all started, and we got a feel for what Mukunda and others had been describing. Out of his incessant street fight in the heaviest city on earth, somehow the Swami had established Fort Krishna, and slowly pushed back the relentless armies of Maya. I just love the way he writes, it's so good. Brahmananda chaired meetings with other New York leaders, Rupanuga, Purushottam, Roy Ram, whom I knew from San Francisco, and they offered us unlimited support. Brahmananda informed us that he had just that day received a telegram from the Swami in Montreal. Please inform Shyamasundar I have sent yesterday afternoon $1,655 to Charter Bank in London as desired by him. He felt he had strong anchors on this side of the pond. We were scheduled to leave from LaGuardia on August 27th at 11 p.m. on Loflighter Icelandic Airways DC-8, arriving in Reykjavik at 10:30 the next morning. We would leave then Reykjavik at 11:30 a.m. and arriving in Luxembourg at 5 p.m. on the 28th. Cost of a one-way ticket from New York to Luxembourg was $52.50, but with taxes and travel agent fees, the price goes up to $65 per person. Wow, what a deal. Madhava Mangala, she can tell us about the prices of travel these days. Wow, what a deal. Malati and I stayed in a Dutch and Berlitz apartment, sweating and lying prone near an open window with the fan on high, listening to our baby cry, traffic and sirens below, pondering the leap we were about to take. Then a Dutch rushed into his apartment with a package in his sticky hand. This came to you today at the temple. My passport! We're good to go. London. Malati and I and the baby Saraswati staggered off the train into the morning rush at Victoria Station. Thousands of well-dressed Londoners were milling around us in three-piece suits and miniskirts, along with an occasional long-haired hippie brushing by as if we didn't exist. I asked a guy in a bowler hat clutching a briefcase, "Excuse me, sir, is there a drugstore nearby?" He looked at me, but doesn't see me. "Pardon me, madam," Malati says to an old housewife type in a dowdy hat with a feather. "Can you please direct us to a drugstore?" The woman, perhaps remembering a Yank accent from 25 years ago when the GIs helped save this precious island, says, "What?" Malati explains, I need diapers for the baby." "Oh, you must mean nappies. You need the chemist." "Yes, there's a Boots just over there." It was August 30th, 1968, Radha Astami. Radha's birthday. our first moments in London. It's my birthday too, Malati says. Yipes, I forgot. They were so excited she had forgotten her own birthday. Jai Srila Prabhupada. We'd been on the ground for 40 hours and Saraswati had been pooping a lot. Gurudas, Jamuna, Mukunda, Janaki, Malati, and the baby and I had arrived at the airport in Luxembourg in the evening on August 28th. We had taken taxis from there to Hauptbahnhof, where we'd sat many hours in the Buffet de la Gare until the Seagulls and the Grants boarded their train to Amsterdam. Then Malati and I caught the overnight express via Kailas and Dover to London. There were no more clean diapers and the situation smelled. Oh no. British immigration rules were very strict in the 1968, and the colonies were breaking up and savage hordes were knocking at Britain's door, putting tremendous strain on the National Socialist coffers. If you were a tourist with a one-way ticket, you had to prove you had sufficient funds to stay in the UK and then get yourself home. But we were about $600 for the 6 of us. The minimum requirement was for one couple. So we made a plan. Malati would enter England and I would enter England first and then wire the 600 back to the next couple who would wait in Amsterdam, who would enter UK, then wire the money to the third couple. Another problem arose that summer that affected our plans to enter Britain in July and August. A big stink had been raised in the UK about Scientology. Scientology was a New Age religion founded by a guy named L. Ron Hubbard. London newspapers had whipped up a huge controversy about how Scientology was destroying British youth. The papers also accused the cult leader of misappropriating funds and scandalous behavior. As a result, July 28, 1968 edition of the Sunday Mirror ran an article called Scientology, Sex, Hypnotism, and Security Checks. Minister of Health, Mr. Kenneth Robinson, last week in the House of Commons, finally announced steps to curb the activities of the Scientologists in Britain. These curbs are that Scientology centers will no longer be accepted as educational establishments. Foreigners will not be allowed to come in as Scientology students. The last thing they wanted in the UK at that time was a bunch of penniless foreigners starting a new religion. And there was another thing too. There was the Moonies. They were there. And they started, because we were collecting at the airports, and they started collecting at the airports. So they were like competing with us. They ended up fading out and disappearing, and we didn't see them. But for about 5 years, they were big, the Moonies, and they were it created difficulties for us. And we had these different like stigmas, as if we were them. As British customs, our tour of British castles ploy seemed to work for what was the purpose of your visit. In question, we had a letter from Mr. James Kaur Jayananda certifying that Malati and I were licensed teachers as well as well-known academy in America, ISKCON. It's a well-known academy, ISKCON. What's that then? Oh, it's a well-known school for humanitarian studies. He showed the guy our traveler's checks, and just then Saraswati started to poop and scream. She flustered the customs agents who stamped our passport and said, "Welcome to UK." That was helpful. Expedite. Next, we brought the nappies and an overpriced perambulator baby buggy. Oh, you must mean a pram at Boots, the chemist. So our immediate problems were solved. But where to go next in this vast metropolis? I remember from my precious visits that there was a lot of bedsits, cheap bed and breakfast rooms in Earl Court, not far from Victoria Station. We rented a room for 3 pounds, $6.75 a day, and Malati quickly crashed with the baby. It was a Friday, so I had to rush over to American Express at 1 Haymarket Street to change our traveler's checks and wire the money back to Amsterdam. Gurudas and Jamuna, my typing is not the best sometimes. Gurudas and Jamuna would come over next, so I sent the wire care of Roger Siegel. The next day, Saturday, we started looking through lots of ads for places where 3 couples could live together. Not so easy in a post-war bombed-out London, especially on our budget. We looked at a flat in Hampstead Heath, and it was too small and expensive. Walking back to the tube station, we passed a tobacconist shop that had a small handwritten ads tacked to the bulletin board outside. One said, "For sale, 1948 Fordson, Poplar 4-cylinder pickup, pounds 65." And it had a photo of a red toy-like truck and a phone number. Wow! We hadn't seen a pickup truck in this town yet, and at $163, it looked like a pretty good buy to a country boy from Oregon. We didn't even haggle with the guy. I just bought the little 4-banger on the spot. We now have wheels. Next paragraph. Watch out, you're on the wrong side of the road, Malati said over and over. Luckily, the traffic moved slower in England than it did in the United States. The clutch and the floor shift were like a smaller version of my panel truck back home. Even the manual throttle, front starter set up with the same, but I had to do everything left-handed from the wrong side of the cab. The truck owner showed me how to use the 4-foot foldable hand crank kept under the car seat in case the vehicle wouldn't start. That only happened once on our way back to Earl Court when a bobby raised his hand for me to stop at an intersection. I hit the brakes without putting the foot on the clutch and the engine died. The carburetor flooded so the motor wouldn't start with the key. I had to walk around the front of the Fordson, crank it in hand, stuck it in the slot below the grill, and cranked while Malati sat inside and worked the controls. Crank, crank, over and over, it wouldn't start. The bobby came over, and when I told him I just bought the thing in an American twang, he took the crank, motioned me to get behind the wheel, and cranked that little old girl, and she started right up. The Swami used to say there's only 2 places in the world where a gentleman can live, India and England. We had the little disposable nappies, the pram, the truck. Now we needed a roof over our heads. Scanning the newspaper ads, we stood in adjoining royal red phone booths and made calls, trying to sort shillings from the 6pence with halfpenny coins. When you don't know what your money is you're dealing with, you know, when you first get to a country and you have all this money and you don't know what is what, you have no idea what anything's worth. It's like you're bewildered. You're trying to figure out, do the math, and correlate it with what currency you're coming from to try to understand what the value is. It can be very confusing. Every little thing, you're driving on the wrong side of the street. And for Americans, I have to tell you, we have a special curse because we have to translate everything. Pounds into kilos. We have to translate miles into kilometers, Fahrenheit into centigrade. Oh my God, there's nothing we don't have to translate. They've managed to isolate us into this little strange place of not fitting in any place. We're like oddballs, you know? So they're now in the foreign world, and like that was what Jamuna said. She said, a stranger in a strange land. And that's how we are as fish out of water, being spirit souls having a human experience. You know, it's awkward. And then we start thinking we are this body. Well, that's really awkward. It's very awkward. Okay, so trying to sort the 6pence from the halfpenny coins. One guy out in the Brixton said, He had an upstairs flat for rent, 3 bedrooms, living room, and a bath, and gave his address at 800 Ern Hill. Say it again, please. Ern Hill. Can you spell that, please? HERNEHILL. Number 80, Ern Hill. Means SE24. We buy a London A to Z book of road maps and motor over there. We never had GPS. We had maps. And I used to say, a full tank of gas and a good map and I'll go anywhere. We had maps, big maps and map books. That detailed maps were in map books. And so we carried them around. I used to have one for Delhi. Map books. We didn't have cell phones and GPS. Can you imagine? Just maps. So they got the A to Z. And you can really learn a place using maps. It's very fascinating. London was evolved over the centuries into a huge circular city with Trafalgar Square and Piccadilly Circus roughly at the hub. Roads go round like spokes on a wheel with ring roads encircling. So it was pretty easy to drive around, especially if you had a London AZ book. Earl's Court to Herne Hill is about 8 miles and maybe a 40-minute drive. That's fascinating if you do the math. 8 miles and a 40-minute drive, how slow can you go? That's pretty slow. That means a lot of traffic. Wow. So an Indian man opens the door, sounds like a Brit on the phone, and says, he answers the door, sounds like a Brit, and he was surprised as we were when Malati and I said, Hare Krishna, in unison. They both said Hare Krishna to him. They were so happy. He was a nice Indian man. Mr. Kohli wanted 12 pounds a week for the second floor flat and was astonished to hear that we were missionaries from the Hindu faith here in London to start a new Krishna center. We told him the 2 more couples were coming in 2 days, and the place looked perfect. 3 bedrooms around a central fire, central living room. It was a bit big, far from central London, but he said we were near the main roads and could easily travel by tube, the underground train. No shower, but a big cast iron tub. Kohli and his wife lived downstairs. What's that awful smell, said Malati. I whispered to Malati. Turmeric, she said. They use it for cooking. Mr. Kohli showed us how to plug shillings into the meters to buy electricity and hot water. Then I'll fetch you our stuff from Earl's Court, and we moved in that day, Sunday, September 1st, 1968. Swamiji had told us to write frequently. He wanted to be kept up to date on everything we did in London, so first thing I buy some 9-penny 9D blue aerograms at the tobacconist down the road, and I write a letter to Swami. Those were like pieces of paper that had the postage on it and a little bit of glue around the edges, so you wrote the letter on it and you sealed it and stuck it in a mailbox. We had them here too. So we have a place for the full report so far. We're really sure where Swami is. We're not really sure where Swami is right now. We were on the verge of getting the U.S. visa sorted out when we were leaving Montreal, so I sent the letter to New York. We are far away from Swamiji again. Transatlantic calls are expensive, so communication will be by letter. An airmail letter from UK to the United States takes about a week. On the Monday morning, we drove down to Chartered Bank at 2 Regent Street to see if the $1,655 to Swami wired from Montreal had arrived yet. The manager, a distinguished-looking man named Mr. Balfour, said, "No, nothing has come for you." We explained our situation, that we were tourists and that we were relying on those funds for our travel to various British castles. The money should certainly be here by now. Please help us sort this out. Balfour takes a liking to us. He enunciates very upper crust British sports, a monocle and a carnation in his lapel. It is like watching an old English Ronald Keltman movie, hearing the King's English and the quick wit and the understated manners of aristocracy. Oh, he said, but he knows we're up to something. You can just tell. We give him Coley's phone number and he promises to ring us straight away when the money comes. Toodly-doo. We walk over to American Express a few blocks away, and there's a telegram waiting from Guru Das arriving Tuesday, 3rd, Victoria Station, Harkman, Holland, Harwich train, 11 p.m. The next night, we hold our breath standing on the platform wondering if they'll make it through customs. And there they were, Yamuna and Guru Das running to embrace. Guru Das sits in the cab with me and we watch and we catch up. The girls were huddled in behind with blankets, laughing through midnight. London, Elephant and Castle is the name of the crossroads. Guru Das asked, Guru had our $600 in Dutch guilders now, so we decided to go down to Charter Bank on Wednesday morning, all of us, to check on Saraswati's transfer money, change money, open a bank account, then wire most of the money over to Mukunda. There were only 2 seats in my truck. We decided to try out the train system. We walked down the hill about half a mile, catch a train to Herne Hill Station, go 1 stop north to Brixton, switch to an underground Victoria line, go 5 stops to Green Park, switch to Piccadilly line, directions, Copfosters, then 1 stop east to Piccadilly Circus. The bank is a 5-minute walk from Piccadilly. Mr. Balfour greets us like old friends. No, nothing has arrived yet from Montreal, he said. We hand him a wad of guilders to open a checking account. This seems to take a very long time, but the checks look fantastic with the coat of arms, lions, rampant incorporated by the Royal Charter in 1853. As Spelford hands me the checkbook, I say to him, we'd like to leave $10 in the account and wire the balance, 232, to Michael A. Grant in Amsterdam. Aha! One eyebrow goes up, the other still clinches the monocle, and a sly grin grows below his rakish mustache. He knows we're up to something. A few months later, when we could openly walk into Charter Bank with shaved heads and dhoti, I think Balfour felt proud to have been part of our fledgling conspiracy. Mukunda and Janaki arrived 3 days later, Mukunda cradling his precious mridanga. I wonder how he explained that at customs. They asked us if we were Scientologists. Janaki said, "We are Swamiji's London team together again at last." The girls quickly got us organized at Herne Hill flat and assigning rooms to each couple and making arrangements to cook at the Coley's kitchen downstairs. We could come together in the living room where the girls set up a little altar with Jagannath deities. These were the original figurines Malati had found at Cost Plus Imports in San Francisco, which had triggered worship of Lord Jagannath in the Western countries. We continued with our San Francisco sadhana program of early rising, chanting rounds, kirtan, and reading from the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. The 6 of us hadn't lived together since Lucky Street almost 2 years ago, and a lot had happened since then. And we were all strong personalities, but the rough edges of communal life were quickly smoothed as we were settled into our unified mission to create an outstanding Krishna conscious center in London for Bhaktivedanta Swami. While Malati and I had been waiting for the other couples to arrive, I had scoured the local underground newspapers to find out what was happening in the London hippie scene and where. The main underground paper, sort of like our Oracle back in San Francisco, seemed to be the International Times, IT, headquartered on Betterton Street in Covent Garden, downtown London. I showed a copy of IT to the others, and we agreed that this newspaper would be our best first target. We'll go there tomorrow. Before we left Montreal, the Swami had given us Xerox copies from his growing collection of news clippings. So we made up press kits composed of articles about Krishna consciousness and the Swami with photos, letters of commendation, and the like, and began to take it with us wherever we went. London was an exciting new world, so at first we went places together, 2 in the cab of the truck, 4 in the back. It was late summer, so the weather was pretty mild. We bundled up and sailed downtown, taking the scenic route past Big Ben, the Houses of Parliament, Westminster Abbey, Buckingham Palace. So that's where the Queen lives, Trafalgar Square. It's all so quaint. When we get to Betterton Street, Peter stands still. Garam Keen and other IT staff were happy to meet us. They were super busy preparing issue number 40 when we arrived. Barry Miles was there too. He was the guy who had interviewed George Harrison back in May of '67. And he was friends with Allen Ginsberg, so everyone seemed to know about the Swami and his movement. And they welcomed us as a spiritual addition to their emerging hippie scene. Peter was especially impressed by Jamuna's calligraphy on some of our sample flyers, and he proposed an idea. Why don't you draw mantras in Sanskrit for our next IT cover? The deadline is in 3 days. Can you do it? Jamuna agreed that she'd hustle and get the job done on time. Miles took us around the corner to a 5-story building on Drury Lane called Art Slab, which was apparently the new center of the hippie activity in London. He explained that the London scene was different from the San Francisco scene. London hippies were spread out, not clustered in one neighborhood like in Haight-Ashbury. The high-class mods like Mick Jagger and Twiggy hung out in the World's End district of King's Road in Chelsea and shopped on Carnaby Street, which had become the global trendsetter for youth fashion. There was a small enclave of working-class hippies living in Portobello Road in West London, and for the most part, hippies were dispersed all over this huge city. Hippies would meet at central places like the Arts Lab or at the Roundhouse in Chalk Farm for rock concerts. Barry introduced us to Jimmy Haynes and Jack Moore, the 2 Americans who ran the Arts Lab. Jim said, "Oh, I've been to the 2nd Avenue Temple. I love your Swami. Can you guys have kirtan down here a few nights a week?" Yes, we agreed on 2 nights a week, 7 p.m. Wednesday and Fridays at the Arts Lab. Our first day together in London, we were already on a roll. We decided to hit Trafalgar Square and try out some public kirtan and went and see what happens. We started off slow, timid, before the crowds of the busy Londoners and gawking tourists at the base of Nelson Column. But when Gurudas gave full off-key voice, gave his full off-key voice to the Hare Krishna mantra, it broke the ice and we all got into it, dancing around and having fun with our first public appearance. Aside from the white tilak on our foreheads and the big red beads, they had big red beads around their necks, we looked down and we didn't look very much different from anyone else, so we had no printed information to pass out. So there was no public response. So the public response was, "These people are crazy." We landed in a small park called Soho Square. Looks like something's amiss. away from the main streets. And the police didn't hassle us, but it started to rain heavy. So we went home to Herne Hill, everyone soaking wet, jubilant about our first day in London together. We spent the rest of the day talking about what happened and ways to improve our act and where to go from here. First thing, we don't stand out in this huge city. We need to look different, to make a statement with our appearance. The women had saris, but the men, dreaded business of shaving our heads, wearing dhotis was brought up. You know, guys, if we really want to stand out, we got to do this. So they're talking themselves into it, guys, on their own. That is so amazing. I was probably the most reluctant to shave my head. Proud of my long curly hair, I imagined I looked like Bob Dylan in his Blonde on Blonde album cover. Gurudas was the most brass. He volunteered to go first. Up there in the main road of Herne Hill, we watched as Malati scissor cut and then shaved his head with a straight razor to a shining white and little bloody ticks, leaving a sika on top. You could see all the contours of his skull. Ugh. Mukunda was next. I was last. We stood up around and howled with laughter. How dumb we looked. And hey, no way will they miss us now. They knew they would definitely look different. Hare Krishna. The girls had a couple of saris each and already knew how to wear them. And Mrs. Coley was downstairs to show them little stuff about the blouses and such. But none of us had any idea about dhotis, how long they should be, how to tie them on our bodies. The girls would go out tomorrow to buy cloth for them. Second thing, we discussed the band. 1968, London was the music center of the world. The Beatles, the Rolling Stones, the Who, Cream, Moody Blues, these were the British voices of global pop culture. Even Jimi Hendrix often hung out in England. I met the devotees the first time was at a Jimi Hendrix concert. We chanted and danced with them. It was cool. We knew that after the first days in London, that if we were to make any sort of impact spreading the Swami's message in UK, we had to become a band. Just look at any of the 1968 IT newspaper and you'll see on every page articles, announcements, and advertisement for dozens of local bands. London was a music scene. Reel-to-reel tape recorders were a high-tech gizmo in 1968, big and chunky. The Germans made the best models. Yamuna and Gurudas got a Grundig TK247 reel-to-reel tape recorder. Gurudas had brought it at a tax-free shop in Luxembourg and hauled it with them to London. Yamuna had some tapes of the Swami singing prayers and mantras. She was an expert in Sanskrit pronunciation and melodies. Mukunda was a professional musician, so he decided that Jamuna and Mukunda would lead us daily in band practice. We would learn the words and create catchy melodies to several prayers and mantras and build a repertoire. The third thing we discussed, let's get right to work on the cover for that International Times and maybe write some articles for it and let everyone know we're in town. We have arrived. The Hare Krishna movement has arrived in London and they're ready to roll, but they're inventing it as they go along, which is fascinating. They're inventing it as they go along. So, fourth, we get out. We're going to need an official permit to have some street Sankirtan. Mukunda was our main man for this kind of thing. And he said he would start looking into it. He will pursue getting London ISKCON legalized as a charitable institution in the UK. For that, we need proper apparel. So Janaki would shop for a bowler hat, a brolly, an umbrella, an overcoat, and a nice scarf. Fifth, we needed to buy some electric hot plates so the girls could cook upstairs, minimizing the use of the kitchen downstairs where the coolies eat meat, fish, and eggs. Can you imagine the disappointment? We miss Swamiji terribly, even though it had been less than a month since we left him, but he had said that he would always be with us, and we felt his presence. We could easily imagine him in the room laughing at our escapades, like Gurudas doing the ball floor imitation. That's a bit of a sticky wicket, eh, Mr. Doss? We sensed the Swami listening to our reports and guiding us with his wisdom. We saw in our minds his mobile facial features, mock seriousness while he was performing a joke, head back, hilarity at the punchline, and then back to deep concern with Jamuna's sore throat or baby Saraswati's colic. On September 20th, Mukunda and Gurudas got letters from the Swami. We crowded around, soaking in every word as they read them out loud. Swamiji notes that there are nearly 500,000 Indians in London and that we could gain their cooperation. He also notes that there may be old churches not being properly used and we could try to get one of them. People will be attracted to the nice temple arrangements. He goes on to inquire if that $1,655 has arrived. Not yet. And to inspire us with transcendental competition, he informs us that the new ISKCON temples had opened in West Virginia, Hawaii, Seattle, Vancouver. Hint, why have you not yet bought anything? The nicks in our skull started to heal, and we rubbed mineral oil onto our skin of our heads to make them shine. The girls bought lengths of cotton and dyed them yellow. Yellow had become the de facto color for householders since early days in San Francisco when Kirtananda tried to dye his dhoti cloth, dhoti saffron with saffron spice and used in Indian cooking. The dhotis had come out yellow instead, and Swamiji had told them to just give them to the householders because they can wear yellow. The girls also bought us 3 boys matching turtleneck sweaters in orange, the closest we could find to yellow. So we had these long yellow bed sheets. How to tie them? We tried combinations of folds and knots and tucks and laughed till tears came out. Finally, Mr. Coley advised us, and we stood before the ladies in our daffodil garbs. And if these bald-headed clowns in canary yellow robes don't catch people's attention, what will, and the brightly colored narrow jackets we brought from Gunga Muni's shop in San Francisco, the orange sweaters, the bright red beads, and the white tilak smeared, well, up to our balding, shining heads. Who are these guys? We started going to the art club on Wednesday and Friday nights. The place was dark with different events going on simultaneously in many rooms, and gradually more and more young hippies started to join our kirtans and listen to our brief but simple lectures. Only the trucks. Okay, the truck's running. Let's get this outfit loaded up, Mukunda said. Just a second, Shyamasundar. Let me get some more plastic around the redunda. It's raining pretty hard. Jayananda said, hey, Guru, you carry the prasadam. Be careful. Hold it flat. It'll spill. Janaki said, wait a second. I forgot my shawl. It's really freezing in the back of the truck. You comfy blokes in the front with your heater. But one by one, we pile into the tiny truck. Sometimes it starts with a key. Sometimes it doesn't. In which case, I glide down the hill a bit and jerk start it. It's like you kickstart it by coasting. On really cold nights, someone, usually Charu Das, had to take a hand crank, insert it in the hole in the front of the engine and gauge it while I turn the key and pump the gas in neutral. 1 foot on the brake, he turns the crank hard to the right. 1, 2, choke. 3 times, clank. It backfires and the steel rod whacks up his hand. Youch! One more time, Guru Das, you can do it. Finally, the bloody thing starts and we roll down to London. 4 bodies packed in, back with food, garlands, instruments, and literature. If we have any, I drive. Malati, Saraswati, bundled in her lap, sits in a bucket seat in the front. The heater is on full blast, windshield wipers flappeting, flippity-flappity as we crawl up Herne Hill, coast down Wandsworth Road, motor all the way to Elephant and Castle roundabout, go north across Thames at Waterloo Bridge, through Aldridge, turn left on narrow cobbled Drury Lane past the Royal Opera House in less than an hour. Whoa. In less than an hour, we're there. The Arts Lab, 182 Drury Lane. Drury Lane, where Shakespeare had lived. It is the heart of Covent Garden, and it's time. Hare Krishna. I feel like we just got started. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. He's got a way of writing. It's very adventurous, you know. Very adventurous, and he pulls you in, you feel like you're there. It's really nice. Hare Krishna. Thank you all very, very much. Hare Bol, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare